In today's video here on Outer Database, we look at 50 facts about the Republic ships from the Star Wars universe, including facts about the roles the ships served in, why Venators had 2 bridges, why they were replaced so quickly by the Empire, and much more. Let's not waste our time and get straight to the first fact. The most famous Republic ships during the Clone Wars were arguably the Acclamator Cruisers and the Venator Star Destroyers. Venators were Republic Star Destroyers during the Clone Wars. With a length of 1,137 meters, they just barely fit into the Star Destroyer category, which started at a length of 1 kilometer. The Acclamator Class Cruisers, however, were somewhat shorter. They were 752 meters long, which meant they didn't fall into the category of Star Destroyers, but rather of heavy cruisers. While most of the Republic's vehicles, starfighters and starships were secretly manufactured on the planet Rothana, the Venator Star Destroyers were a pure product of the Kuat drive yards, which also appear to have been produced entirely on and above Kuat. In Legends, for most of the Clone Wars, the Republic only had the Acclamator Cruisers as large, standard capital ships. Here the Venator Star Destroyers were only completed a few months before the end of the war. In canon, the Venator Star Destroyers existed right from the beginning of the Clone Wars. Unlike many other Republic ships, Venator Star Destroyers weren't restricted to a specific role. They were much more versatile and could be used in a variety of functions. For one thing, the Venator Star Destroyers had a fairly large hangar capacity, which made them ideal for use as fighter carriers. In Legends we have 420 starfighters, which seems a bit high to me. However, in canon we don't have a precise number for the maximum number of fighters a Venator could carry. It was certainly several hundred though. After all, the majority of the Venator's forward section was intended for these hangars. In order to be able to bring starfighters to the battlefield quickly, the Venator had massive wing doors attached to its top, which it could open, giving the fighters a launch lane directly from the hangars. This was a radical difference from most other mostly small hangar openings on other ships of that time. In addition to their use as fighter carriers, Venators could also serve as simple combat ships in combat against other capital ships. They were equipped with 8 heavy turbolaser turrets, 2 medium dual turbolasers, 52-point defense lasers, and 4 heavy proton torpedo launchers. And last but not least, they were also heavily armored to withstand direct fire. With this armament, the Venator Star Destroyers were quite well equipped against missiles and torpedoes, but also against starfighters. And in terms of their anti-capital ship armament, Venators were also well within the norm of their time. Legends sources also tell us that Venators were quite fast ships. Their hyperspace rating puts them in Class 1, which was one of the fastest in the galaxy at the time. So when traveling between different systems in hyperspace, they could be quite fast. Unfortunately, we have no information on their speed outside of an atmosphere in normal space. However, we are told that Venator Star Destroyers could also be quite fast ships, making them well suited for chases and breaking through blockades. If you made it this far into the video, I would really appreciate it if you'd give this video a thumbs up and you'd consider subscribing. It would help me a lot and you would get notified when I upload my next video. I have tons of ideas for more 50 facts videos about armies, ships and fleets. But back to the video. To really complete the picture of an all-rounder, Venators also had space for a total of 2,000 soldiers and up to 64 large vehicles. They could therefore also be used as troop transports. However, the Venators usually required special equipment on the planet's surface to land and take off safely. Therefore, troops and vehicles were usually transported to the planet's surface by dropship. The crew size of the Venator Star Destroyers was 7,400 people. In total, these ships could carry almost 10,000 people on board. To support these crews, Venator Star Destroyers could also carry supplies for up to 2 years. Taking all of this into account, Venator Star Destroyers could be great warships, fighter carriers, troop transports, blockade runners, and flagships. Because Venator Star Destroyers were often assigned to Jedi generals, they were often simply called Jedi Cruisers by the general public. The power for all these functions came from a single massive reactor located beneath the bridge tower. But for emergencies, Venators also had 2 additional backup reactors. The Venator class Star Destroyers were also equipped with 2 bridges. The simple reason for this was their function as fighter carriers. While one bridge performed the normal functions of a capital ship, the other bridge could concentrate fully on coordinating the starfighters, making the Venator an even more capable fighter carrier. But if they were so good, why were they replaced by other ships so incredibly quickly by the Empire? Before we answer this question, let's look at a few other Republic ships. Then it will be easier to explain why many of them were not continued by the Empire. The functions of the Acclamator Cruiser were different from that of the Venator. Some would even say they were simpler. Essentially, an Acclamator Cruiser had one single mission: to transport troops to a planet's surface. Since not every planet wanted to see Republic troops on its soil, the Acclamator Cruisers also needed enough firepower to stand up to enemy capital ships. For this purpose, they were armed with 12 quad turbo lasers, 24 point defense lasers, and 4 heavy missile launchers or proton torpedo launchers. More than enough weaponry to counter an enemy fleet in a group. In terms of troop numbers, the Acclamator carried significantly more troops than the Venator Star Destroyers at 16,000. However, regular Acclamator Cruisers were incapable of carrying starfighters and bringing them into combat. But since Acclamators were often used in fleets and the Republic's fighters with their hyperdrives could theoretically jump themselves into hyperspace, this wasn't a big problem. As troop transports, these Acclamators could of course also land on the surface of planets, something some other ships of that time such as the Venators couldn't do. For such landings, Acclamator Star Destroyers were equipped with 3 enormous legs that could extend and retract. And at the rear of their sides was an exit ramp where troops and vehicles could be loaded and unloaded. Speaking of vehicles, in addition to troops, such Acclamator Cruisers could carry up to 320 speeder bikes, 80 LAAT dropships of various types, 48 ATTEs and 36 SPHA's artilleries. Considering that Acclamator Cruisers were approximately 60% the length of a Venator Star Destroyer, they required far fewer crew members. The Venator had a crew of 7,400, while the Acclamator Cruisers had a mere 700. That's less than 10% of what a Venator needed. Interestingly, the Acclamator Cruiser's hyperspace rating was 0.6. Remember, the Venator Star Destroyers was 1. Since hyperspace ratings work slightly differently, 0.6 is significantly faster than 1. To be precise, a rating of 0.5 would be twice as fast as a Venator. A rating of 2 would then be twice as slow. Thus, Acclamator Star Destroyers travel almost twice as fast in hyperspace as Venator Star Destroyers. Another ship often used by the Republic in the Clone Wars was the Acclamator class light cruiser. While the Acclamator and Venator classes were designed for the films, Episode 2 and 3, the Acclamator's design was purely for the Star Wars The Clone Wars series. These ships were 325 meters long. They were armed with 4 dual turbo laser cannons, 4 quad laser cannons and 4 missile launchers. This made them perfect as escort and support ships. Not large enough to take on other capital ships on their own, but powerful enough to protect other ships from starfighters or while protecting larger ships to provide fire support for these larger ships. What probably made these ships really interesting was their small crew size. Only 100 people were sufficient to operate the Acclamator class ships. This is a consular class cruiser, which at 150 meters long shouldn't really be called a cruiser at all. Originally, before the Clone Wars, ships of this class were intended to shuttle diplomats and Jedi around the galaxy and transport them to various planets. Since this was peacetime, the ships were also unarmed. But when things really started to heat up during the Clone Wars, the Republic looked for easy ways to acquire more warships. Since they had a lot of these consular cruisers, they were quickly converted, equipped with more armor, better sensors and weapons. For their small size, they also had a lot of power under their hood. They were equipped with 5 dual turbo laser turrets and a twin laser cannon. At least most of the time. Some variants also received 4 heavy twin laser cannon turrets, 1 light twin laser cannon turret, a quad laser cannon and 2 assault missile launchers. One variant was better suited to fighting other capital ships, the other was more geared towards fighting starfighters. And to keep these ships running, the Republic only needed a crew of 9 people. This 282 meter long ship, the Pelta Class, was arguably one of the most important ships of the Clone Wars for the Republic. The armament of these small ships, with 2 light turbo laser batteries, 3 light point defense laser batteries and 3 tractor beam emitters, wasn't exactly the best. But the Pelta Class frigates could truly excel in other areas. First of all, they were quite easy to modify, which meant they could take on a wide variety of roads. They were also very spacious inside. This made them perfect as supply, support or medical ships. They were also very fast and maneuverable, allowing them to easily evade enemies with a bit of skill. If fighting on a planet dragged on and on and on and spare parts, ammunition or medical supplies ran out, these Pelta Class frigates could help out even if the planet was under enemy blockade. This tells us a lot about various Republic ships during the Clone Wars. But what about them during the Empire? We know that some, like the Pelta Class frigates or the Acclimators class, continued to be used more or less in the same way. Other ships ended up in places like this a few years later. Among them many Acclimators and Venators. But thanks to Darth Vader in Legends, we know that some Acclamator Cruisers also served as slave ships. Whether for the Empire or not is unclear. The main reason these ships were no longer used by the Empire is simply that the Empire pursued a different philosophy regarding warfare than the Republic. The Tarkin Doctrine. This stipulated that the Empire should rule through the display of immense power. Power that would spread fear and terror among the population, so that no one would dare to oppose the Empire. And the Venator Star Destroyers, in particular, no longer fit this role. In addition, the Empire was moving away from many powerful starfighters, making a fighter carrier obsolete. If you want to see more 50 Facts videos about the Star Wars universe, check out the 50 Facts video about Imperial Star Destroyers here, or the 50 Facts video about the Clone Army of the Republic here in the end card. Have a great day and may the Force be with you.